Yeah, hello everyone. I'm live now. This is going to be an English live streaming, and this is going to be about geometry nodes and its new implementation that will come with Blender 3.0. So right now we are about to go to Beacon 3. So that means that Blender is about to enter in beta. So you are going to be able to use Blender 3.0 beta. And that means that basically in the 20th of in October 20th, we are going to get a locked up Blender. I mean that it's not going to get any new feature, any other new feature. So it's going to be in stabilization. Hello VLC, Eric, David, Majo, Ruben. Hello. I know many of you follow me as a Spanish streamer, but I'm also an English streamer, and I may do this live streaming, this same live streaming in Spanish too. But today I wanted to do it in English because some of you know that we are about to launch a course about geometry nodes. And while the course is like an introduction to geometry nodes, and you will be able to get a full production proven tool ready to use, and you will get the tool too, so it's like a mixture between geometry nodes and an add-on. I wanted to do an introduction anyways in the channels, because it's not the same what we are going to see in the course. It's a bit more advanced than this, but you need to know the basics at least to be able to understand geometry nodes in 3.0. So this is what we are going to do. It's pretty easy. The tool that we are going to do, the scene that we are going to work, it's very cool, and it's going to use the add-on RBD Lab. I'm not sure if you know the add-on. Probably you know, but just in case, Blender Market, RBD Lab. So this is the add-on. Okay, and this add-on is a destruction add-on, but however, we are going to use the add-on for its it's not going to do the destruction by itself. It's going to do the piecing. I know, so the fracture. It's going to do the fracture work, but we are not going to use physics for this effect. So this is going to be like a magical effect. It's going to be like magic, like when you have a sorcerer, you have a wizard, and with hand it opens a hole in the wall, and then the hole closes again. So this is going to be the effect we are going to get with these nodes, with geometry nodes. So it's pretty cool and it's pretty easy. The course will be so helpful. Yeah, I agree. The course will be very helpful for many people, and you will discover that geometry nodes is quite easy, especially now with fields. We're missing some things from the latest implementation. We're missing the ability to be able to use named attributes, because basically it relies in anonymous attributes. And anonymous attributes basically are like variables that will create the tree by itself, and you don't know the name, and you don't need to know the name. And named attributes are basically attributes that you create manually, and you know the name and you set the name. So it's a bit like that. It's nothing more complex like that. It's pretty easy. Hello Maguilar and PVTR Corps, Pedro. Let me drink a bit. So this is seen. Well, I'm going to leverage the opportunity also to mention that we're going to have Bone Master for Blender 3.0, because now, thanks to Alex Fuller, we have light groups in Blender 3.0. It's not perfectly fine yet, so I don't have the build here to show you the light groups because it's not in its final implementation. But we will have Bone Master with light groups, and light groups will probably land master for 3.1. Not sure the time, maybe for the alpha in the first days, or maybe a few weeks later, but it will most probably be in 3.1 release for sure. So for now, we are going to have light groups in Boldmaster for 3.0 release for sure. So let's go to see this scene. This is the scene. Let me hide the shaders. This is the scene, and I animated just 20 frames. Okay, it's a pretty fast scene because I just wanted to get the motion blur for the picture. But this is basically the scene, and you can see the wall, and if I press play, you can see what happens. Let's do this a bit slower. So everything is manipulated with this sphere. And oh, okay, I used 30 frames, so let's go to 100 frames. 100 frames. Okay, and frame 100, and then we get this. As you can see, it's completely real time, and it's very easy to manipulate. It has no physics at all, of course, but I doubt if we can mix physics with this. Maybe, hello Vigil, maybe, but I'm not sure. Let me share the live streaming link in other servers because I forgot to do it, by the way. So I forgot to share the link, and that's not good because people is going to tell me, hey, we want the link, man. Where is my channel? Here. Okay. And I have to share it in Blender UI, but if you can share it, it will be better because I don't want to stop the live streaming. Hello, Stanjets. So, how can we do this? It's very easy. No, today there will be a walk, but it will be a private walk, not a live streaming walk. Hello, Jose. Okay, so it's very easy. The amount of nodes required to do this are ridiculous. So let me show you. If we go to the GN holder, this is the actual object. We will do the full fracture workflow later, but basically this is the object, and you can see that I can move this and I can pick the sphere. Hey, thanks for the subscription. I'm not sure why, but it's not enabled. Let me enable this. Okay, the chat and the subscription. This is in English. Now, I will be the streaming probably in Spanish another day, but this streaming is in English. I forgot to put that in the title, by the way. So, as you can see, we can move this object and it totally reacts. Yeah. Or we can scale it, or we can make it smaller. We have full control over the effect. So it's pretty cool, pretty cool. So we now, let me change this. Okay, we now can go to the geometry nodes, and don't be afraid, this is going to be very easy. So geometry nodes, and we can see nothing. Why? Because we have not the object selected. I created a cube, and that cube is what I call a GN holder. It's just the geometry nodes holder. This geometry, the geometry from the cube, is going to be useless. Okay, we are not going to use that geometry. Yes, fully interactive, David. It's not going to be geometry from the cube, so it's just a GN holder with a modifier, and this is the amount of nodes you require to do this effect. I know at the beginning it seems to be complex, but in reality, as soon as I explain this, you are going to understand all the complexities, all the things that we are doing here, and you are going to see how this is way easier than with the old system of named attributes, only named attributes in the old geometry nodes in Blender 2.3. You know that the chat is being in the streaming before I can see it in the web chat. So, as you can see here, let's forget about the dope sheet right now. We don't need the dope sheet. I barely use the dope sheet for this. As you can see here, let's do an analysis, and I will reproduce the same effect later. you can see that there are many dotted lines. Maybe in the release, they may be colored lines. I'm not sure. The dotted lines for me, it's a bit ditzy. I don't like them too much, especially because we mix dotted lines with solid lines and such things, and I don't like that too much. But it's not the end of the world. So you can see how here we have collection info, we have wall height, that is this wall. I can hide this, and this is the wall that has been fractured with RBD lab. We will do it with a cube later for the tutorial itself. So this is just the original geometry for the wall. But what geometry nodes does now is that it takes the geometry we decide to use and it converts that geometry into instances. So everything that comes out from collection info and object info is not real geometry. They are just instances from the real geometry. So right now you can see there that we have 500 instances. As I say, it's very, very easy to understand this. So if we go following the solid line, that is what you have to do, we can go following the solid line, and then we have some nodes, that is translate instances, that what these nodes are from yesterday, and what it does is just to translate those instances. Pretty obvious, right? Okay, so next we have scale instances, and what it does is that, you guessed it, it scales instances. Very easy. And after that, we have another node that is rotate instances, and what it does is to rotate instances. So far, so good, right? It's very logical. Now, let's go to the complex part of the tree, because it's not that complex, to be honest. It's not that complex. So we decide to use an object to control all this effect, because this effect is going to be controlled like with a distance falloff. Okay, so we have, yeah, Blender get better and better. You are right. We have object info, and we decided to use this sphere. Okay, it's right now it's just a sphere in bounds, but I can put it as an object. And let me hide the height, and let me use the holder, and let me, so no, not this. Well, yes, I want this because I want this in info, so you don't miss anything here. And let me, so the timeline to be able to move it. Timeline. Great. So we have this sphere that is our object, or control object. Okay. Then I did this, that is just to scale instances. This is not really needed. Maybe if we disable this, it's not going to make a big difference. Let me test. Yes, not really needed. We can delete these nodes. And then I have two nodes, realize instances and geometry proximity. In the old version of geometry nodes, some nodes converted the instances to real objects. And that was a problem because we were not aware about that. So suddenly the performance was awesome, and then you added a node and the performance were very down, and you started to have a very a scene with a very high weight, and it was a problem. Hey Jorge. So right now, instead of doing that under the hood, what it does is that it uses the realize instances node, so we can decide when do we want to have the instances as real geometry. And sadly, right now, the geometry proximity node, that is what does all this effect, works only with real geometry. It doesn't work with instances. And remember that object info gives us one instance, not one object. Okay? So we have one instance, we use realize instances, and then we use the geometry proximity. With what? Well, we use position, and this position, it's an attribute. It's in the old version of geometry nodes, we would use like the position attribute, and I'm not sure if it's attribute transform, or I don't remember the name, or attribute get, I don't remember the name. The thing is that you would get the position attribute of the current object. So you would have like a spaghetti, a long spaghetti with a lot of nodes all in one line, instead of having everything more organized. And you may think that this is not organized, but this is actually very, very organized. It's easy to read. So we use the geometry proximity node with the position of the original object, which is this object. Okay, all these objects, all these 500 instances are the objects that are being processed here. Okay, so target or sphere, source position, the position of our objects. Easy. Now, if we continue following the dotted lines, we can see that we have a random value, an add, a mix, and then we connect this to translation. So these numbers, these calculations are going to be the calculations for the modification of the position of each piece. Okay, I can mute the scale and the rotate, and you can see how this is just translating. Okay, it's just translating the pieces. It's not rotating nor scaling the pieces. Okay, I think this effect is pretty cool. It's pretty easy, but it's pretty cool. Bevel the wall, and you get a perfect spherical stone wall. Yeah, you're right. I should have beveled it. Hello, Josu. Yeah, probably I will do this in Spanish too. Probablemente, Josu. So, we are now working just with the translate instances, okay? And what are we doing here? We have geometry proximity and we have position. So we decide to mix a random value with a minimum and a maximum for the position. I can go here and I can do this, for example, way smaller. And imagine that I want this to explode to the sides and not to the front. So I can give this a bit more, so it goes out a bit more, and then I can do this not to the bottom, but just to the left, and then to the right, and then to the height, and then we have a totally different effect. Okay, it's pretty easy. How did you mute the nodes? With the M key. Oh, wait a second. I think I have screen key. Yeah, great. So you can see the M key. Okay, this is muting the nodes. So this is just a random value to have random values for my nodes. Just that. And then I add the current position of the object, which is here in position, with the random value. And then I use this random value, I use this result, this vector, and I mix it with a map range, because this is just a color. And in this case, I think I have a problem here. Let me test the thing. Yeah, if I leave this this way, it has barely no effect, but I will leave it in white. So if I mix this, I'm mixing between this value, which is the result value, okay, this is the fully disassembled wall, and the original value, which is here. Okay, I could get, probably, I think it's not required, but I could get this and put this here. No, it's not doing any good. So we will just leave this here. So now I'm mixing it, and I'm controlling this map range that we will talk about it later. So I'm going to connect the result to the factor, and then the sphere is affecting the wall. Okay, let me put this again to -4, -4, -34, and 4 and 4. Even a bit more. Yes, I'm like in the Shader. Yes, all the geometry nodes with fields, it's very similar to the Shader editor. Hello, J. Melina. Very, very similar. We will talk about this map range later. So now, when I connect this mix to the translate instances, it translates the instances. Next, I go to the scale, and if I follow let me see, there is something broken here. I broke the scene. Why? Let me check. Why did I broke the scene? I did something that make it mad. Let me reload because I don't want to lose time analyzing this. So we go here and we go to geometry nodes again, and here we have our scene. And let's use the timeline and then go here. Okay, so now we go to the scale instances and we are just going to scale the instance. Hello, Ulysses. So basically what we do is to use the same geometry proximity, but in this case we use the distance value. This is going to give us a value from 0 if the target object is exactly in the same way of one of the instances to infinity. I mean to the distance the object is from that instance. Okay, and this is an array of distances. Okay, it's not just an instance, it's an array. So we are going to use this distance value with a map range. Why? Because I want this distance value to go from 0 to 1, not from 0 to infinity. And now I'm going to clamp this because I want this value to be taken into account from 0 to 7. So the maximum distance I want to affect the scale is 7 meters. And I want to convert this into a normalized value from 0 to 1 to use this with different effects. In this case, I'm going to use the map range and I'm going to multiply this map range with the result of this map range. And this map range, that is what they control the factor, is used for the same. Just in this case, instead from 0 to 7, I'm used from 0 to 4. That's it, from 0 to 4. I multiply both of these and then I connect this to scale. That's it. That's how I control the scale. I can move this sphere. Let me show this sphere again. Okay, I can move this here and I'm controlling both scale and position. And now what do we do with the rotation? Fairly easy too. For the rotation, we are going to do basically the same. We are going to get a random value. This value is going to be in radians. And by the way, to radians now, this. Yeah, okay. This value is going to be in radians. The required value is going to be in radians. Not sure why. But we are going to enter angles, Euler angles. Okay. So I want this to randomly rotate from minus 540 degrees to 540 degrees. This is the range of the random values I want to get. And while this is a rotation, I don't care if I get the rotation with the same values in the 3 axes because there are many objects, so it's not a problem for me. So I can use this, and then I use one vector here to mix the rotation. What I mean is that, once again, I'm mixing from this, which is the fully random version, to this, which is the version without any kind of rotation. In fact, if I use this, you can see how I can rotate everything. Okay? So let's connect again the factor. Yeah. Okay? And this goes to rotate the instances. And that's it. That's the effect. And this works with whatever we want to use, because I'm using right now the wall height, this collection, but I may decide to use a different collection. I may decide to use the cube low, for example. This is a simple cube that is also pre-fractured. And if I move this, this works exactly the same. Okay? Have you got it? It's very easy. Let's repeat everything, but let's create the nodes one by one. So we're going to use the RVD lab to do the breaking. So let's hide the gem holder for the time being, and let's create one object here. And in this case, we are going to create I don't know, for example, a monkey. And since we are going to have problems fracturing the object if the object is not manifold or watertight, so if it's not watertight, in this case it's not watertight, we are going to use the voxel measure. So remesh voxel 0.05, 0.02, 0.03. Okay, as this one, smooth shading and apply. Yeah, I can raise the microphone volume. Is this okay? Is this better? Yeah? Probably some of you have the ears completely broken now. So we are going to fracture this object. So we are going to enable RVD Lab. The version I have here from RVD Lab, it's like it's pudding in my mouth. So the version I have here from RVD Lab is the development version. So what you're going to see here is not what you're going to get if you get the add-on right now. But I recommend you to get the add-on right now because it's going to be massive. So right now I have to enable this and I go to RVD Lab Fracture and then I say start to annotation. Now I don't want to paint tools. I want to scatter, just simple scatter. And I press scatter, I get this, and this means I get 500 points, no please, 40, 100 points, it's okay. And I prefer jitter for the particles, and that's it. So I'm going to fracture it, it's going to create everything by itself, it's going to create the collection, it's going to create everything, okay? So now it's fracturing. It has a lot of geometry, so it's taking a bit. And that's it. Now we will see if everything is okay. Yeah, it seems everything is okay. So let's go to the high resolution. I want details, so I'm going to press with details. And then we wait a tiny bit. To be honest, the wall fracturing was pretty fast. And I think this has been also pretty fast. So now I can see some problematic pieces like this one. So we can select the problematic pieces. This is, I'm not sure if this is okay or not. To be honest, I like the aspect. Let me check this. If we use wall outer and wall inner. No, but I want the same material for everything. No, I don't care. Right now I don't care. So we can select the problematic pieces. Yeah, this one for sure. And we can press autofix selected and it should work and it should deliver the correct result. Or maybe this was the problematic. We have select bad chunks, so we can try selecting the bad chunks and autofix selected. I remember your first videos talking about Blender. Now you're a master, dedication, effort, and a lot of love. Yeah, it's especially effort, dedication, and effort. A lot of love too, but the love is for all of you and for the community and for what I get with Blender. But for Blender to learn to use properly Blender and every new feature it has, it requires just effort. It's dedication and effort, nothing more, nothing less. So let's see, because I think it's auto-fixing things. We need some kind of message here, man. By the way, if YouTube is a bit slow for you, you can go to Twitch also, because we have the Twitch streaming too. And it's waiting, it's detecting several ones. It's waiting, it's waiting, it's waiting. At least we have this, and we have the message. We know it's going on and it's not broken. So meanwhile, I'm going to go to Blender and I'm going to post. If I find the community streams channel, yeah, here. and it has not finished. You have to wait a bit more. Keep in mind that the amount of geometry of the monkey, it was a bit high, so it's more or less normal. And as I said, we are not going to use the physics, okay? We are not going to use rigid bodies or anything similar. Are we finished? Not yet. Why? It has very big amount of chunks. How many? 64? So we have to wait until it solves 64 chunks. Come on. I may kill this. This does not come back to life. Okay, it's time. I will kill it. It's working, but I don't want to be waiting so much. So I'm going to start the process again. So select objects and delete hierarchy. And Susan hide, delete hierarchy. And Susan here. And how many? Yeah, we have a lot of geometry. Let's take the opportunity and let's use the wall outer material and wall inner material. And let's optimize this a bit. So secondary scatter is because there are some particles for the scatter thing, but I don't want them. So let's decimate it a bit, like 0.25, and this is okay. So let's scatter 100 points, it's okay. Scatter is already done. So fracture is going to create this again. Maybe 100 points is too much for Susan. Okay, I want this with details. And we have some problematic pieces like this one. Let's try autofix selected. Autofix selected, but this time I'm going to go by the manual way. So I don't know why there's some chunks that are not being fixed, but sincerely I don't care at all. I don't care. It looks cool. So let's go into leave this this way, and now apply high modifiers because I want to use this for animation. So if I don't have the modifiers applied, I could have problems with the simulation if I do simulation, or with the animation it could be slow. So apply high modifiers, and then we have the high resolution ready to use. It will show us the low resolution, I think, but we will ignore this. How many objects do we have? Okay, here we are. Now I can disable RBD Lab. We have the Susan Low and Susan High. I will disable the Susan Low and I will enable the Susan High. And we have Susan ready to be destroyed. Maybe the material is a bit too big for this Susan, but I don't care about it right now. So now we could do this, and we are going, so you can follow everything correctly. I'm going to delete this one, and I'm going to divide this, and I'm going to use these geometry nodes as a reference. Okay, this is the working one, and we could change this with the cube low, but we are not going to do that. We are going to do this from the start. So we are going to hide this GN solver, but we are going to have this geometry nodes tree here for reference. Now I'm going to create a new object, just a cube, and this is going to be our second GN solver. So I want this outside of the RBD Lab collection, GM holder v2. Okay, and we can go here and we can create a new geometry nodes tree from here, or we can go to geometry nodes and press the modifier, and the modifier will create the tree for us. So now we have the cube, but we don't want the cube, so get out of here. We can have the group input here. Ahmed, thanks for doing this. There are very few insights to the fields workflow available. Yeah, it's true, because it was kind of unstable. I mean, with unstable, I don't mean that it was crashing. In fact, it was crashing, but it's not because of that, but it was incomplete. In fact, I delayed the course I have prepared, the release of the course, because I wanted to record everything with geometry nodes fields and not with the old version. So it lacked a lot of nodes. We were missing a lot of nodes, and now we have more or less all the important nodes that we need to do several things. So now I can do this. But it's basically like working with shaders. So I said that I don't want the original geometry. I'm going to use the collection. What collection? I'm going to use Susan High. So for that, I'm going to create a collection info. And here I will have the collection info node, and I can select Susan High. As soon as I connect this to the geometry output, I get the geometry output of Susan High. So I can disable this, and I can say to this that I don't want this to render. Okay, we have Susan High. Now what happens? If I think of using, for example, a transform node, this is what it's going to happen. It transforms everything like one single object, because this is transforming the geometry, the object, okay? It's not transforming the instances. But if we go here, we can see that we have just one instance. Why? Because right now the collection is considered one object in itself, no matter how many objects does it have inside, because it's going to be treated like one single object. Okay, let me check one thing here. Yeah, we have like 15-20 minutes. Now we can enable the separate children option, and then if we check this, we have 188 instances. Why? Because we have 188 pieces of the broken Susan, okay? But if I do this, everything is moving together, okay? Because this is not thought to do this. This is thought to move everything in general. If we want to move the instances, we have the translate instances that are the new node from yesterday. So now we can have a selection using different, we don't have yet a tool to do selections. However, we can do a selection. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it correctly right now, but let me check. We have the index attribute, because right now every attribute will be a node. Every named attribute will be a node, at least for the time being. I hope this changes. But we have the index, and if we evaluate the index, we can connect this to selection and it does nothing. Okay, you can see how this piece is not moving. But we have the index, and we have another thing that is the attribute statistic. Okay, this is a complex node that I don't fully understand yet, but it's pretty useful because we can connect the geometry to this and the index to the attribute, and then we have a min-max and a range. Okay, so if we check the values, the different values, this has not been computed yet, but we can use, let's see if it works. If I use a map range, min-max, let's use the range, not the range, the maximum value, and let's connect this to selection, and then we can increase this or increase this. I don't remember how it's, no, I'm not sure right now how to do it, because the attribute statistic node, it's kind of complex. So, but we can get like a range selection with this, but right now I'm not sure, so I'm not going to use it. Juan, don't use it what you don't know what does. Okay, so we now have to translate the instances with our target object, but we don't have the target object defined. So I'm going to define a new object, not a sphere. I'm going to define, for example, a cube. Okay, this is going to be my control object. And for this, I don't want the object to be in the middle of my view, so I'm going to put this in bound, so I have the bound only. I go back to my broken Susan, and we can have an object info. Sorry. Object info. I pick the object info, and now I can use a proximity geometry proximity. So with these three things, we are going to do the effect. It's just that, okay? What should I do? I have to use the geometry, I have to use the geometry of the object as the target, but if I use the geometry as it is from the object info node, it's not going to work. Is this going to be uploaded onto the channel? Yes, it's going to be uploaded. It's going to be an object info node, okay? So right now, if I go here, I can see it's not okay, it's not computed. I'm going to connect this here just for the sake of computing it, and I get one instance. That's okay, but I said before that the geometry proximity node is not working with instances. It's just working with real geometry. So for that, we are going to use realize instances, and boom, we have it. Okay, it's not working yet, but we have something. What do we have? Something. What something? This something. Okay, it's just that. So now we have geometry proximity or target, and we need a source position. Okay, and the source position is going to be the position of the original pieces, and this means we have to use the position node. This position node is going to give us the position of these original pieces. Okay, I repeat this several times because it's a bit confusing that you don't have any kind of input in this position, and I really don't like this, but it is what it is. I imagine that you have the position here in location too, so it is what it is. So we are going to get the source position, and then it's not working yet. Okay, because we are using position directly. We don't want position. We want to do several things. We want to mix between the final position and the final position, the original position and the final position. Hello, Sotomonte from Spain. I'm also in Spain. You're on a study break. Good luck with the studies, with the exams. So if we go here, when I created this, it was to generate like a layered system that will give us more amount of geometry for the detection, but we don't need this really. So we can use directly the realized instances. You can see the positions, the points. Okay, of course, I want to use the points. But I have barely any points. Let's leave this in faces yet. And you can see how I got the position and I added to a random value. Okay, so let's do the same thing. We create a random value. This is going to be a vector, and we are going to put -4, -4, -4 to 4, 4, 4. Okay, we can select the ID because we have now a stable ID, but in this case is not required. So we are going to do math, vector math, because we are going to work with vectors. A position is a vector. So vector math, we add this vector to this vector, and if we connect this to translation, we have random positions. Okay, and we can change this to control this. Okay, -4, tal. Okay, now what do we need? We need to enable this situation when the box is near the object. Okay, for that we use the distance value. So right now, if I go to I can use a mix. There is no mixed node. Okay, we don't have a mixed node. I'm not sure. This is just a combine RGB, combine XYZ. So since we cannot do a proper vector mix or in vector math, let me check. But I think we don't have a mix here. No, see, we don't have a mix here. So since we don't have a mix, we are going to use something that is kind of sketchy, but in the end it's basically the same, not combined, sorry. Mix RGB is basically the same, mixer, okay? And an RGB value is just a 4 values vector. So we are going to use 3 of those 4 values, and that's it. And since a translation is a 3 values vector, it's going to get just the first 3 vectors, so we can use this. So now, if I go here and I connect this, the mixer of my random value with the position, let me expand this a bit. With the position, I connect this to the mix node, and I connect this to the translation. I have a control of when do I want the original object and when do I want the translated object. Yeah, Oscar, I maybe do it in Spanish too. I probably will do it in Spanish too. Okay, so we have a control. Now we need to control this with the distance of this object. We could pick a different object, but why are we going to pick a different object when we have this? So we can get and pick this. Now, if I move this, it should work. Why is it not working? Based in position, relative. Yeah, I forgot to add the object info to relative, because if it's original, it's going to be like in the 0. So relative to the current position. And now if I move this, you can see how the pieces go nuts. Okay? And it's fully real time. No matter the amount of geometry, this is going to be fully real time. No physics, of course, but fully real time. So let's go back. And as you can imagine, the effect is complete, because right now what we have to do is to complete and repeat this process for translation with the scale and with the rotation. So let's do it pretty quick. Let me check one thing. Let me put this here and this here, and let me check the input of these nodes. So this is more organized. Okay, there is one more thing. Since the distance is going to give us a value from 0 to whatever, and we want this to be under control, I don't want to reach the 1, so 1 meter of distance, and then stop there. What I want is to be able to move this further away and make it react. So if I go near 1 meter of the object, it starts to react. But if I go further, I don't have control about the maximum distance I need. So for this, we can use, oh, what a hit. For this, we can use, yeah, Johnny, in English. For this, we can use the map range node. So we are going to map the range that we decide from distance to 0 to 1, okay? So we get map range, and we can connect the distance to the value, and this value to the factor. Okay? And now it's going to do the same, exactly the same. But why? Because I have here that the value from 0 to 1, so the nearest value is going to be 0, and the farthest value is going to be 1 meter. But if I increase this to 10 meters, for example, you can see how it breaks, and I can get a more, okay? I can get a more controlled effect. Ah, yeah, there is one small detail that I haven't told you about the position, but well, it's not important. If we don't use this position here, we're going to use just this value. You can see how the object, let me check one thing. No, disconnect. This way. So you can check how the pieces are moving, but they are not following the target object. In the system we have, since we are using the position, this is giving us the position of the target object. So we are using the position of the target object, so the pieces comes to the target object. Okay, and if I go here, it do this. Okay, yeah, it's pretty cool. So With this, we control the distance, and we also can control the smoothing, the curve of smoothing. So now we can use step linear or smooth step or smoother step. These are different options we have, and depending on the effect you want to get, you can use one or the other. So in linear for us, it's we can use not the step linear. Let's see. Yeah, pack. This is pretty cool. Oh, this is a beautiful effect. Yeah, it's cool. Now, but let's go to smoother step. So we have a smoother curve. It starts low and then goes faster and then goes slow and then goes again. Okay, it works also with the scale, because basically what it's detecting is the distance from the geometry of this object. Okay. So right now we have the effect starting at 10 meters. We have here 10 meters. We have nearest the object and we get the effect. Next, we want the pieces to rotate. So now we are going to use the instance rotate or rotate instance. And what can we do? We are going to use a random value. But in this case, random value. I'm going to use a float. I don't need a vector. I could use a vector, but why? Why would I use a vector? And I want to enter degrees, Euler degrees. Okay, so for Euler degrees, I just have a float. So minus 360 to 360. And since you can see here how it puts degrees, okay, and I can rotate 90 degrees, and it should be rotating 90 degrees. Okay, it's rotating 90 degrees. However, if I use a value, it's going to convert this to a vector. Well, let's combine x, y, z to control only the z-axis. It's not, well, I can do it manually. So let's connect this, and I put 90 degrees, and you can see how it's not rotating 90 degrees. So this is deceptive. This is lying to us. This is in angles, but the input, it's in radians. And I don't know how many radians are 90 degrees, and you probably don't know either. And if you know how many radians are 90 degrees, it's because you know math, but I don't know math. So I have no idea. So I want to work with Euler angles. So for that, I have the random value, and I can use a math node, because this is just a float. So a simple math node, and we have a function here that says to radians to degrees. And in my case, I want to convert Euler angles to radians. So I convert this to radians. Okay, I can clamp it. I don't want to clamp it. I convert this to radians, and now I can connect this to the rotation. And now I have a random rotation. Okay, this is just a random rotation. Cool. But this is not controlled yet by the effect. Why? Because we have to mix the endpoint and the starting point. So let's pick this, and let's do the same. We are going to use some mix RGB. We connect one here, the other one here. We're going to leave this at 0. We have 0, 1. Okay. If we want to control this in a different way, in an inverse way, we can mix the connections here, and the 0 and 1 will mean a different thing. Okay. And now we want to use the factor, and we may use this factor, or we may create a new one with a different distance because we want the pieces to start rotating before, or something like that. So I'm going to create a different map range. So right now, if I put here 5 meters, the objects are going to start moving, and when I reach near the 5 meters, I'm going to get the rotation. I think that this is a pretty cool effect. Okay, so for example, 5 meters is okay. And now we have the rotation. And now let's make this disappear. How? With the scale. So it's exactly the same. We are about to finish the live streaming because it's exactly the same. Scale instances, okay? Scale instances, and I don't want any random value now. I just want to mix this to go to 0, and if you see what I did here, I just created a vector connected to this color and then connected a random value, but I don't want the random value. The random value, no, this is for rotation, sorry. The scale, I have the scale here. As you can see, I just used a map range with the distance, and I used this map range for the other thing, for the factor. So right now, I'm going to use the mix RGB. I'm going to connect this to scale, and for starts, I want this to be perfectly fine. On the contrary, in the one I want to be this perfectly fine, and now I want this to be 0 when I go to 0. Okay, I don't need to connect anything. I can use just this. So now I can use this map range, or maybe better the rotation, or I can create a new. I will use this one. I don't care. So right now, if I do this, the object is going to disappear in the dust, in the wind. The object is disappearing in the wind now. Yeah, it's this simple. It's pretty cool, right? So we can create another map range. Okay, with Ctrl+Shift+D, I duplicate this, and we can connect this here, and we can use a different range. For example, 1 meter. I want it to affect the scale at 1 meter, so when it's very near, it should start. No, it's not working with 1 meter. Let's use 3 meters. Yeah, it's kind of working, but since the objects are far away from the box, we can do this. It's not going to fully disappear. This is the reason why I used the several instances in this version, because this takes into account just the faces. It doesn't care about the volume, so it doesn't care if the objects are inside the object. It's just what's the distance between the objects and the geometry of the control object. So to mitigate this, more or less, we can go here. Let me save this. We can go here and we can do several copies of this object. So we are going to use a transform, and in this case we want the transform. So transform, transform, and transform, and I'm going to connect this. Well, in fact, I can, so you can see the output. Let me disable this and let me connect this one. This is our cube, okay? And then if we connect this, this is our cube, and we are not seeing our cube. Why? Because our cube is not visible. Text. Why am I not seeing the cube? I want to see this cube. Oh yes, I'm seeing it. It's here. It's the same cube. So if I connect this here, I can scale this to 0.8, for example, and you can see the result is a cube in 0.8. Okay, and but it's not the add of both of the cubes. Okay, I want the add of both of the cubes. So for that, I'm going to connect this geometry to every cube, and then I'm going to, or I could connect this, for example, and I could do 0.6, and I could connect this, or even 0.8 would work because I'm scaling what it's already scaled. So if I connect this, I just have one cube. So let's put 0.6, and let's, but I want all the geometries, the original one and the other ones. So for that, I can use join geometry, and I want this to be the first geometry. Let me disconnect this one. Disconnect. Come on, man. Ah, Here we go. So we want this, and then we want this, and then we want this, and then we want this. No, not this one, sorry. We want this, and we have 4 copies, but we need this to be in the original version of the object. So for that, we can change. Can we change this? Why is this doing the scale on the relative position? Because I'm using the relative position. So this is changing. That's not cool, man. That's not cool. Let me try one thing. Let's realize instances. Let's mute this. Now if I move, that's not cool. I don't like this. How can I do this? Well, I can get this, I can get the original geometry, and I'm going to click this one. Come on, I hate when these connections don't work correctly. Okay. And I'm going to use this one, and then I'm going to use a node that is called set position, and I'm going to get, I'm not going to use this node, I'm going to get this location and this geometry. Okay, and this geometry is the one I want to use. So right now, if I connect this geometry, we can see how we have this. If I move this cube, but I have to apply also the scale, and I think we don't have a set scale. Nope. But we have the scale attribute, so we can use another transform node. Now this is a bit crazy. Adrián, Adrián, haré una versión en español de este directo. I will do an Spanish version of this live. So we can apply the scale here and the rotation here. And now we have what we need. Since we have more layers of geometry, we are going to have more layers of detection. So we get the output. Okay, we get the output here at the end of the tree. And as you can see here, there are no pieces inside anymore. Why? Because we have more geometry, so it's affecting more. Okay, and we can repeat this. Many times, so we have like an onion of geometry. It's just putting more geometry together to get this kind of effect. It's like doing an array. In reality, this is like doing an array. It's not nothing more, nothing less. And this is it. This is the effect. Pretty cool, pretty simple, very controllable. Imagine that we want to control the maximum distance of the effect distances. Okay, so we want the maximum distance, and I'm going to finish the live streaming with this. We can connect the maximum distance here. We can connect this other maximum distance here. And we can connect this other maximum distance here. And we can go to the group, and we can say max translate, max rotate, and max scale. Also, I may want to pick the collection that I want to use from the modifier. So for that, I just have to get the output and connect this here. This is the object info, so this is the the control object. Okay, and we need to connect this to these two because these two uses the same, and we now want the collection, so we just connect the collection to the collection, and here we are. So now if we go to the layout, we have the effect, we can pick the collection. For example, I want to change the collection to the wall height, and then I got the wall height being controlled with the cube. Whoa, whoa, it's dancing. Hey, hey, hey. And now, if we go here, we can reduce the distance, we can reduce the rotation or increase, even increase the rotation, the distance for the rotation, or we can increase the value of the scale, and it fully disappears. Yep. And we can go here and put viewport display to bounds. And this is it. Do you have any questions? Any questions here? No. Okay. So this is like the first class, is an advancement of the Geometry Nodes course we are going to release soon. It will go out for pre-sale in probably next week. I'm not sure, but probably next week. I won't say the price because I want to do some discounts, but to get the discount, you will have to be in our newsletter. So you can go here to school.boundstudio.com and you can subscribe free to this one, our free course, and you will get also some add-ons like the boxes UV. If you don't know what this is, we can see it here. It's just a modifier to get box UVs that you can control and rotate. So let's see if I can show. Okay, you can see, and you can control the UVs of several objects just with this add-on. And you will get also the modify pivot. That is an add-on that we used to use. Let me clean this. We used to use this add-on when we didn't have the modify only origins. So right now it's not as needed, but there are people that come from 3ds Max that misses the functionality of the old way of doing this in 3ds Max. And also you will get BS layered mix, that is a mix node for materials. Yes, it's a layer node, so you can use a base texture or color, a factor of mixing, where you can plug a mask. So you will get several things, not just you won't be just in the mailing, but you will get several things. And also you will access some tutorials that these tutorials are already in YouTube, but we are going to record new tutorials about going from 3ds Max to Blender. And before they are going to be in YouTube, they will be here in our free area in the school. Also in Spanish, if you want, we have, or it says 2.8, but this is a lie. We are using, right now we are using in the classes, we are using 3.0. You have this one and you have this one, and this one is going to be replaced with the new one because there are new things and better things. This is with animation nodes, and what we are going to do is with geometry nodes, and it's way better and way more performance. You can use an empty. Well, not exactly. You cannot use an empty because when we go to geometry nodes, remember that we are using a node that is called, it's called geometry proximity. So the object you use as a control object has to be a geometric object. That doesn't mean that you can create some fake geometry inside the node tree and use an empty to control it and create this geometry just to control the proximity and hide later the geometry. So you can use it, just you have to create that functionality inside the node tree. And finally, you can go to this course. This is in Spanish, by the way. This is not in English, but this is a super big course of ArchViz that is really big. I'm recording yet several things of this course. You're practicing your English, Leo. And this is a very big course, and this will allow you to render. This will allow you to learn how do we do our work in architectural visualization with Blender, with cycles, and with LuxCore. Right now we are focusing in cycles, but you will learn to do interior rendering like these ones. That is what we do at the studio. So this is it. If you want to go into the course, you know what you have to do. Go now, because the course is going to have a higher price in very few time. I said it many times, and I say it seriously. It's going to rise the price considerably, because the course gets the videos, gets the continuous classes, gets the Discord server, gets many things. So if you want the course, go into the course now. And this is it. We broke the wall. Let me show the plane. Let's do the render, the final render. We're not going to have motion blur, because for that we need this. So we need to animate this. So let's go from here. Yeah, from here. And in 30 frames here. And we go to the frame we want, for example, this one. And let's render this with cycles X. This is going to be just CPU, okay? So let's see how much time does it take to render. Oh, my cube. No, I don't want my cube to be renderable. So let's hide everything. And cycles X, well, it's not cycles X anymore. Remember that this is now plain cycles. Okay, this is just cycles, not cycles X. And it took 15 seconds? Yeah, 15 seconds to render this frame at full HD. It's a super simple scene, so it's kind of normal, but it's pretty cool. Let's render the previous frame. I think it's better. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So this is it, guys and gals. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for watching this introduction to Geometry Nodes. Remember to go into our mailing if you want to have a discount to the early access of the course. And see you in the next live streaming. Bye.